Hi, welcome back to Hey Miss Kelda. I'm Kelda Lang Poynott, author and educator. And for the next several episodes of Hey Miss Kelda, I'm going to give some recommendations for subjects. So today is going to be, what do you recommend for science? Before we get started, I am in no way compensated for what I recommend. And just know that these are things that we've actually used and found helpful and I can get excited about. I'm not really a big science person. My talents lie in writing and English, and that's kind of where I went as my own passions. But science, I was really learning along with my children and their interests. And so student interests are really key for areas where we have a lot of freedom. And science and social studies are the two subjects that we have the most freedom in. Science can be broad based or it can be super specific. What I loved about science is that we were introduced to the concept of living books early on with our homeschooling. Living books are basically books, not a textbook, but books that are about a subject written by people that usually have a really big heart for that subject. We also read about scientists, their biographies or their autobiographies. And so we had a personal interest and a personal um, teachers who were passionate about these subjects. I cannot say enough good things about Usborne books. If you're not familiar with Usborne books, please look them up. They are phenomenal. And every year I ordered Usborne books to supplement our learning or sometimes to be the foundations of our learning because they are that good. We did science experiments and they start with even like kindergarten levels all the way up through middle school. Cannot say enough good things about Usborne books. In middle school, we did Kingfisher science as a guide, just kind of as the outline of what our science was going to be. And from there, we used documentaries and we supplemented with library books and we did field trips. So that was kind of, and it also was a really great way for them to read material and learn note taking skills in middle school. In elementary school, we also use the closest things that I can say that we did for textbooks would be either elementary apologia or the real science. It's like R period, E period, A period, L period science books as our guidelines, as just to cover, be sure that we covered an entire topic, especially as they get into upper elementary and middle school. I really wanted it to be foundational for their high school sciences. Those science books really did bring the experiments to life. And I think that science for us, we just wanted it to be real, we wanted it to be applicable, and we wanted them to have a relationship with everything that they learned in science, whether we were outside, you know. Identifying leaves in the fall, or we were collecting things to try and keep alive. There's a great book called Pets in a Jar, and it like tells you basically how to keep everything that all the little critters that your kids find in the yard alive, at least for a short period of time. For scouts, we had to keep a toad alive for a month for a reptile study, and so we relied on a lot of those resources that we already had on the shelf to help us with keeping this toad alive. We I recommend to this to families all the time. Make a list at the beginning of the year with your students and say, hey guys, what do y'all want to study this year? And let them pick 8 or 9 or 10 topics that you plan to study for the year. The neat thing with that list is it usually goes off into tangents. And so I call that tangent learning. So we might have started off with a certain area of science and we began asking questions. And that's what science does. It makes us ask questions. It makes us want to seek knowledge. It makes us want to become researchers and investigate. And so we go on these little tangents. So we may have these 10 things that we started off that we thought we were going to study, but maybe we ended up studying things in great detail, or we got into a subject and went, okay, well, that was enough, and then we move on quickly, or we spend a great deal of time in that area because of our students' interests. And it's holding their attention, and they're really getting a lot out of it, or they realize that it's so much bigger than what they first thought about a certain topic. The library is our greatest resource when it comes to living books, when it comes to those factual, um, you know, just for our students to be able to go and look up information and read and get it from someone who's written it from a perspective that's not a textbook. And I think it just helps their interest grow in science. Another area that for our personal family, we had a lot of pets. We had rodents, we had guinea pigs and hamsters and dogs and cats and rabbits and whatever, we were that family that just welcomed for a season a, a, a wide range of critters into our home. But I think it really did teach our children responsibility. It taught them the behaviors and the habitats of these creatures, and so that was really a lot of fun for our kids um, to experience that. That's not for every family, but we welcome that for a season, and then you know it passed. That season passed, and so we don't have all those animals like that anymore in our house. For high school, it was not very challenging for me to find textbooks for high school science. Have allowed my children, as they've gotten into high school, to have a say in what books they chose. If they were books we already had on the shelf, or if we went to the store and bought something different. We predominantly used Abeka and Apologia for science. I am not saying that Christian curriculum is the only way to go. And if you want something that is secular, I wish I could recommend something specific to you that I've used, but my students picked those books and liked those books, and I liked the way that they were organized and they were student directed, so they didn't need a lot of my instruction for us to get through those classes, for us to get through those high school science credits. They could do it more independently. And like I said before, I'm not very science oriented, so it was just really good for them to be more independent in those areas. I will recommend Apologia and Abeka. Again, I like the format. The students respond well to the way they look and feel, and the approach to the content. But again, I do wish that I could recommend a whole bunch of science curriculums, but once we found something that worked, we stuck to it and we moved on through high school with that. Science again, fun subject. For my boys who were in Cub Scouts, we did all of the science experiments for arrow points. Not only were they age appropriate and developmentally appropriate, but they were also fun and helped them to learn skills, especially about nature, about their bodies. Human anatomy is something really important since we're humans. So I'm going to just recommend that you have as much fun in science as you can. Let it be student led, let it be their interests, let it be something that as a family it just becomes a part of what you do. Get a little messy in the kitchen, get a little messy outside, and have fun in this. Let this be something that we all look forward to and enjoy together. If you would like to reach out to me, you can email me at keldapoinot@gmail.com. I have workshops available on Patreon, and all of my written works are on Amazon.